I'm Generalized, and this is Historicity, a channel in which we keep a record of the constant call time, the good and the bad, in hopes of learning not to repeat the mistakes of the past. Around this time, Socrates started roaming the streets of Athens, conducting an experiment that he hoped would prove he was the wisest man. He started with a pupil of his, Defiance, who went to Delphi and, asking the oracle of Apollo there for guidance, he asked the oracle if there was anyone wiser than Socrates in front of all the worshippers in attendance, to which the oracle replied that there was not. In describing these events and the reason for his belief, Socrates presented a story about Lycurgus, the great Spartan warrior and designer of the Spartan constitution and oligarchy, and how he too had visited the oracle of Apollo at Delphi, and this in turn had cried out, "I do not know whether to call you a god or a man." Socrates continued, "Apollo did not compare me to a god as he had done with Lycurgus. He did, however, judge that I far excelled the rest of mankind." Modest, wasn't he? At first, Plato states he didn't agree with the god's assessment. He states, "I thought to myself, what in the world does the god mean, and what riddle is he propounding? For I am conscious that I am not wise, much or little. What then does he mean by declaring that I am the wisest?" So he made it his mission in life to start questioning the citizens of Athens to see if there was anyone among them wiser than he. According to Plato, this is how he got in trouble and became unpopular in the first place. And yes, I'm not going to deny it, it must have contributed. But let's summarize Socrates real quick. He was extremely ugly, short, not very charming, incredibly smart, and a bit too honest for his own good, and not modest at all. To be honest, he was a gigantic and on top of that, he espoused very dangerous, extremely dangerous anti-democratic ideas. And he was very popular with the aristocratic Athenian youth, the youth with the means, the power, and the strength to actually turn those ideas into a reality. Plato continues by saying that Socrates ended his research by arriving at the conclusion that indeed he was the wisest man, for he found that while he himself knew nothing, all the others he questioned knew even less, and they were not even aware of their own ignorance. Then Plato continues. He met a man by the name of Anytus, a master tanner and a middle-class political leader. He was one of the new rich members of Athens, and one looking to make a name for himself. Eventually, Anytus would become one of Socrates' main enemies. It all started in the Ecclesia, the People's Assembly. A man by the name of Miletus, whom Plato states he had never met or even seen before, rose up and levied two accusations against Socrates. Number one, refusing to acknowledge the gods recognized by the state and introducing new and different gods. And number two, corrupting the youth. What Socrates and his followers didn't know then was that Miletus was nothing but a puppet. Since accusations had been made, the matter then headed to trial, where three accusers rose up. The original accuser, Miletus, a second accuser by the name of Lycon, of whom much is not known, and a third accuser, Anytus. Now, beside their political disagreements, according to historians, there were personal reasons why these men in particular had a special animosity against Socrates. It is said that Socrates had a relationship with the son of Anytus, one which might have actually been sexual, as according to Plato, Socrates had once said, "I had a brief association with the son of Anytus, and I found him not lacking in spirit," if you know what he means. Additionally, it is said that Socrates went ahead and gave the son of Anytus some life advice the father might have actually disapproved of. According to Xenophon, Socrates told him not to continue in the servile occupation that his father had provided for him. In the case of Lycon, it might have also been because Lycon blamed Socrates for the relationship of his son, Autolycus, and a friend of Socrates 3 decades older than Autolycus, a man by the name of Callias. Now, the trial took place over a period of 9 hours in the Agora, the marketplace in the middle of Athens, and 500 citizens decided his fate. Usually, Athenian juries consisted of 201 to 2,500 jurors in order to prevent bribery from helping someone rig the cases. In his defense, he was defiant as usual. He described himself as a hero, talked about his military service for Athens, and explained how he had fought for years to save the souls of young Athenians. When addressing the charges of corrupting the youth of Athens, he actually stated that he never claimed to be a teacher. He was just a man who spent his time walking around the city, and that if someone asked him a question, he would answer it to the best of his ability. And he did not show any remorse, nor the desire to ever change his ways. He actually told the jury, "Men of Athens, I honor and love you, but I shall obey God rather than you. And while I have life and strength, I shall never cease from the practice and teaching of philosophy. Understand that I shall never alter my ways, not even if I have to die many times." The jurors seemed to agree. 220 of them cast solid discs into the ballot box, which meant they believed the accused, and 280 of them cast hollow discs, which meant a guilty verdict. After the guilty verdict, the jurors were asked to determine Socrates' penalty. His accusers went for the jugular. They asked for a death sentence. Socrates was actually afforded the opportunity by the court to decide his own punishment. At first, he sarcastically said that instead of being punished, he should have been rewarded for his actions. Historians theorize that he could have asked to be ostracized, to be exiled, which would have taken him out of Athens and satisfied his accusers, and the court would have probably granted it. Instead, when pressed to provide a more realistic punishment, he said that he should have just been fined a modest amount of money. The jury, tired of Socrates and his antics, sided with the accusers. Socrates was sentenced to die, and as it was customary in ancient Athens, he would be his own executioner. When the day arrived, several of his friends visited him in jail. According to Plato, one of them, a rich man by the name of Crito, had bribed the guards and paid for and arranged Socrates' escape. He was planning on relocating the philosopher somewhere else, in another town, in an island somewhere, in another city. However, when presented with the offer, Socrates simply refused. He was determined to die. To flee would have compromised his character, everything he had lived for, everything he taught. This is why his death is sometimes referred to as a suicide. According to Plato, Crito then signaled for a slave to get the man who was going to bring the poison, hemlock, which had already been mixed in a cup. When the man entered the room, Socrates asked him, "Now, good sir, you understand these things. What must I do?" To which the man replied, "Just drink it and walk around until your legs begin to feel heavy. Then lay down. It will act soon." And with that, he offered Socrates the cup. Socrates happily took the cup without fear or trembling. Then, with a stoic look, asked the man, "How say you? Is it permissible to pledge this drink to anyone?" "May I?" The man replied, "We allow reasonable time in which to drink it." "I understand," replied the philosopher. "We can and must pray to the gods that our temporary stay on earth will continue happy beyond the grave. This is my prayer, and may it come to pass." Then he drank the cup. His friends couldn't contain themselves. Crito even had to leave the room in tears. And Plato, his student, his star pupil, ends the story of his life with the following epitaph. This was the end of our friend, the best and wisest and most upright man of any that I have ever known. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and click the bell so that every time there's a new video, you can be immediately informed. Also, come on, subscribe if you haven't already. I'm Generalized, and this is history.